We're now hearing from two people involved in a brawl that broke out at last night's Thornton Township meeting.
Last night's lead story centered on a shocking brawl that erupted during a local meeting, which saw activist Jediah Brown at the center of the chaotic scene. Brown, known for his strong stance on social justice issues, has since spoken out, defending his actions following the altercation. The fight occurred during a heated exchange between Brown and supervisor Tiffany Henyard, who, according to witnesses, became physically involved in the confrontation herself just moments before punches were thrown. The altercation took place during a contentious community meeting where residents were discussing several local issues, including public safety and the allocation of funds for community programs. Both Brown and Henyard had been scheduled to speak at the meeting, but tensions escalated quickly when Henyard addressed the crowd with remarks that some attendees, including Brown, found inflammatory. Brown, who has been vocal about issues such as police reform and racial equality, became visibly upset as Henyard's comments were interpreted by many as dismissive of the very concerns that Brown and his supporters have been advocating for. As the meeting progressed, the situation escalated when Brown stood up to voice his disagreement with Henyard's stance, demanding clarification on her position. Eyewitnesses reported that the verbal exchange grew heated, with both Brown and Henyard raising their voices at one another. It was at this point that, according to reports from multiple sources, Henyard, in an unexpected move, approached Brown and attempted to engage him in a physical confrontation. What began as a verbal dispute quickly turned into a violent exchange. Witnesses recalled seeing Henyard push Brown, prompting him to defend himself. As the altercation unfolded, punches were thrown, and chaos erupted in the meeting room, with attendees rushing to separate the two. In the aftermath of the incident, Brown faced both public scrutiny and support. While some condemned the altercation, arguing that violence is never the answer, others came to Brown's defense, asserting that Henyard's actions were provocative and that Brown was merely reacting to being physically confronted. Speaking out after the incident, Brown emphasized that he did not instigate the physical confrontation. "I've spent years advocating for justice, for equity, and for peaceful dialogue in our community. But when you're physically provoked, sometimes there's little choice but to protect yourself," he explained in a statement to the press. He further clarified that his actions were not intended to escalate the situation, but were a direct response to Henyard's physical aggression. Despite Brown's defense, Henyard herself has yet to comment extensively on the event, though a statement from her office expressed regret over the altercation. The statement indicated that Henyard was disappointed by the turn of events and called for unity and cooperation within the community. However, many believe that Henyard's role in the confrontation may have significant political implications, as she has long been a controversial figure within the local government. The incident has sparked a larger conversation about the role of civility in political discourse, especially in community meetings where differing viewpoints are often expressed. Activists like Brown argue that while disagreement is inevitable, it should never resort to violence. However, they also contend that public figures must take responsibility for how they engage with constituents, particularly in heated moments. When people like Henyard come into a meeting and dismiss the concerns of the community, it creates an atmosphere of hostility, Brown asserted. Local community leaders have also weighed in on the situation, with many expressing concern over the growing tension between public officials and activists. Some have called for improved conflict resolution training for elected officials, while others have suggested that public forums should include clearer guidelines for maintaining order and decorum during meetings. The aftermath of the brawl has also sparked debates about the safety of public meetings and the potential for future disruptions. While Brown's supporters argue that his actions were justified, others have voiced concern about the safety of such events moving forward, especially if the behavior of elected officials continues to be as contentious as it was during this incident. The incident has also raised questions about the broader issue of trust between the community and local leaders. Some residents have expressed their disappointment with Henyard's handling of the situation, with several stating that her aggressive actions have only deepened the divide between local government and the people it is meant to serve. As of now, the full details of the altercation are still being investigated, and both Brown and Henyard are expected to make additional public statements in the coming days. The meeting, which was originally meant to address important local issues, ended in chaos, but it has led to renewed calls for greater accountability and transparency in local government practices. Activists like Brown, who have spent years advocating for social change, see this incident as yet another example of the systemic challenges that communities face when trying to voice their concerns to those in power. Brown's defense of his actions is framed within the broader context of the ongoing struggle for justice, equality, and the right to be heard without fear of retaliation. As the story continues to develop, it is clear that the altercation will not only have political ramifications, but will also spark important conversations about the way in which public officials interact with the communities they serve. The clash between Brown and Henyard has raised questions about the future of civil discourse in public forums, and whether such incidents will become more commonplace in the increasingly polarized political climate. For now, the community is left to grapple with the aftermath of the fight, questioning the appropriate response to conflicts of this nature. What is certain is that the story will continue to dominate local news, as both sides prepare for the next steps in addressing the aftermath of a brawl that shocked both the community and the political establishment alike.
She ran from behind the table with a microphone in her hand, and she hit me with it, while another one of her staff members was kicking me in the head, and I was defending myself against Kamal and other individuals. She wasn't breaking up anything.
Supervisor Tiffany Henyard, who also holds the office of mayor in Thornton, is no stranger to controversy. The brawl that erupted during last night's community meeting is just the latest in a string of dramatic events that have surrounded her leadership. Henyard, already under investigation by the FBI, now finds herself at the center of yet another heated debate, this time regarding her involvement in the physical altercation with activist Jediah Brown. The brawl, which occurred during a public meeting meant to address local issues, quickly gained attention not only for the chaos that ensued, but also because Henyard's actions during the altercation are now being called into question. Eyewitnesses to the event saw Henyard physically engage with Brown, raising the question of whether her involvement escalated the situation rather than de-escalating it as she claims. In a statement following the altercation, Henyard defended her actions, insisting that she had not intended to escalate the conflict, but was instead trying to intervene in a bid to defuse the situation. My personal safety was threatened during the meeting, and in that moment, I rushed into the fight not to join it, but to break it up, Henyard stated in her official response. She explained that she felt compelled to act when tensions between Brown and others in the room reached a boiling point, and said she was simply trying to ensure that the conflict did not spiral out of control. However, Henyard's version of events is met with skepticism by some witnesses and members of the public who were present at the meeting. While some have echoed her claim that the situation was dangerous and needed intervention, others feel that her actions were inappropriate and escalated the physical confrontation rather than diffusing it. The fact that Henyard, as both the supervisor and mayor, entered the physical fray has raised serious concerns about her judgment and her ability to handle situations with the level of professionalism expected of a public official. This latest controversy is not an isolated incident for Henyard, whose tenure as both supervisor and mayor has been marked by mounting tensions with various factions within the community. Her involvement in the brawl adds to the growing list of controversies that have plagued her time in office. Most notably, Henyard is currently under investigation by the FBI for alleged misconduct related to her dual roles as a local government official and her business dealings. Details of the investigation have not been fully disclosed, but the investigation has cast a long shadow over her leadership and contributed to increasing public scrutiny of her actions. Henyard's relationship with the community has been complicated by these ongoing investigations and the broader criticism of her leadership style. The most recent incident has only served to amplify the concerns of those who feel that Henyard's conduct is not in line with the responsibilities expected of an elected official. For some, the altercation is seen as yet another example of Henyard's inability to maintain composure in high-pressure situations, further eroding public confidence in her ability to lead. The FBI investigation, which has been underway for several months, is also a focal point of the criticism leveled against Henyard. Though the exact nature of the inquiry has not been made public, Many speculate that it centers on alleged conflicts of interest and the use of her political power to further personal and business interests. These ongoing federal probes have undoubtedly contributed to the tense atmosphere surrounding Henyard's public appearances, and her involvement in the altercation with Brown may only fuel further public distrust. For Henyard, the stakes are high. The allegations against her are serious, and the brawl incident only adds fuel to the fire of a growing public relations crisis. In the midst of these challenges, Henyard's claims that her actions during the altercation were motivated by a desire to protect herself and restore order could be seen as an attempt to justify her behavior. However, critics argue that her decision to physically engage with Brown only added to the chaos, rather than preventing it. Local political analysts have weighed in on the situation, noting that Henyard's handling of the brawl and her overall leadership are now under the microscope. Some have pointed to the broader implications of her actions, suggesting that if Henyard is unable to navigate community tensions and avoid physical confrontations, it raises serious questions about her ability to lead effectively in a role that requires diplomacy and calm under pressure. As the FBI investigation continues, many are closely watching Henyard's next moves, wondering if this latest drama will be the tipping point in her political career. For now, the public remains divided on her actions during the meeting, with some defending her and others calling for her resignation or further investigation into her conduct. The fallout from the altercation, combined with the ongoing FBI probe, has left Henyard in a precarious position. Whether she can regain the trust of the community remains to be seen. But this incident has undoubtedly deepened the divide between Henyard and many of her constituents, leaving her political future uncertain. In the coming days, it is likely that the community will demand further transparency and accountability from Henyard, particularly as the FBI investigation progresses and more information comes to light.